Thank you for listening to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast, available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Stitcher. Also, please follow Matt's Movie Reviews on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit, Instagram, and MeWe. And of course, be sure to visit mattsmoviereviews.net for the latest reviews, top 10 lists, and more. Now, on to the show.
The ocean is where I go to find peace and a place where I belong. It's where I feel most alive. The thing that keeps me going is the thought of what is out there.
It's the holy grail for any surfer, the perfect wave. And one surfer, Kerby Brown, found his literally at the ends of the earth.
I've always had my own personal demons. When I don't have the ocean, I tend to turn to alcohol and drugs.
I could see it in his eyes. It was like a determination to self-destruct.
I feel like we're all just forced to be part of this machine. And that's the monster I've been trying to get away from my whole life. I'm pushing myself as far as I can, but that comes at a heavy cost.
It's like getting me to come to their funeral.
So many of those waves is on a dry rock.
If you hit your head, good chance you're not coming up.
You know, you could do everything right and it doesn't matter in some of these waves.
There's no water, it's just rock. Why do we do this again?
Maybe I'm searching for something that's not even there.
It's a beautiful thing to see that connection he has with the ocean.
There's a huge fear in not coming home to my family and not being there for my kids.
Bye, sweetie.
Bye, Dad.
I really don't want to have those thoughts going through my head while I'm trying to do what I do.
I don't think it will end until we can't do it anymore.
Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode number 417. Releasing March 10 in cinemas across Australia is Facing Monsters, a documentary that tells the story of Kerby Brown, a slab wave surfer from Western Australia whose obsession with the ocean brings glorious highs and life-threatening lows. A visually mesmerizing documentary about addiction, connection, and family. Facing Monsters is also the latest film from director Bentley Dean, who I'm glad to say joins me now on the podcast. Bentley, I thank you so very much for joining me today.
Pleasure to be here.
You know, first thing I wanted to ask you was, when I watched this movie and I saw the opening scenes, to me it really personified a few of the themes in the movie. One of them is the beauty of nature and the brutality that can really wreak upon someone. And it starts off with, is it Lake Hillier in Western Australia, that pink kind of lake where Kerby is laying down on at the start of the film? Is that the location at the start of the film?
I actually don't even know the name of the lake.
I think it might be because I had to find out what it was. And so you have that scene, and then it follows up with a bloodied and broken Kerby Brown, and like just the juxtaposition between the two is just really kind of stunning to me. When you're in there in the editing booth with your editors, was that something that kind of comes about organically when you are making that kind of shots, or is that something you always had in mind, like in post-production when putting it all together?
Yeah, look, I didn't know even how the Pink Lake would be used at all. Prior to the edit, I didn't even know what it meant. The Pink Lake. So to explain to your viewers, it's Kerby, an aerial shot of Kerby on a flat pink lake, with his surfboard spread eagled and looking up towards the heavens, and you slowly track into him. And Look, that shot actually just came about from me just researching where Kerby lived and grew up, and it was close to a very important wave, important break that he surfed. And it really struck me as an image, and I was actually thinking at the time, I didn't know how I was going to use it, but I was thinking at the time, how do you depict, the subconscious or the I guess the internal thought processes, emotion of a guy, who is possibly going through the trauma of a really bad wipeout, or I don't know, was in love or anything. How do you depict that subconscious without being literal? And so we just filmed it. We just thought, okay, don't know what this means yet, and this is prior to anything bad happening, and it turned out that worked, just beautifully. With representing exactly that state. In the edit, when did it come about in the edits? Like there were various, as with all my films, like there's 1,000,001 beginnings until you get to the very end of the process, and you go like, no, that's it. That's the strongest start. And it's a very, very long shot, which is very unusual, I think, for a film. And I thought I was being brave and making it such a long shot. And then my brilliant one of the editors on the film, Tanya Nemi, who I've collaborated with on the last 10 years, actually insisted that it had to be even longer. Right. and I think it's absolutely the right decision. It really draws you into his world like nothing else I've seen, actually.
To me, it was just absolutely stunning, because that long shot does draw you. Because number one, you looked at this abnormality of the Pink River itself, right? So you're trying to think on that, and then you're looking at Kerby, and then that snap to that other scene. It just really caught me. Just made me hold my breath. It was just fantastic. I wanted to talk about Kerby himself. I think he came to a lot of people's attention back in 2008. It was he was on video. He did this 42-foot wave down in Western Australia where it became kind of like a viral sensation. And that's where a lot of people kind of knew of him. What about yourself? Is that the first time you came across Kerby Brown, or did you know of him beforehand? Did you know him after? When did he kind of come on your radar?
Yeah, look, I have to let everyone know that I'm not a surfer, straight up. Like, he didn't come onto my radar until I got a telephone call out of the blue saying, would you be interested in directing this documentary? It had been, actually, the film project itself had many incarnations over many years, possibly even since that event, that amazing wave. And it had gotten to the stage where it was all fully financed, and a great documentary filmmaker by the name of Jeffrey Smith had actually started directing it for 2 weeks, but had to pull out for personal reasons after the first 2 weeks, and so I got a call to come over. So that's when he got on my radar, and of course, I just jammed my head full of facts and footage and what Jeffrey told me, and talking to Kerby himself, and thought, okay, this is an extraordinary story, extraordinary potential, and leapt at the opportunity, particularly to actually visit some of those locations that you don't ordinarily get to see. Like, this is some of the wildest places in the world, and you're given entree to them by someone who knows them intimately. So
it seems to me that Kerby is a kind of person who has a very kind of small, but kind of like loyal kind of people around him. He has his family, he has his brother, his wife, his dad, his mum. He's very kind of insular in the way that he lives his life. He kind of lives on the edges of Western Australia, so he's near those monsters. When it comes to a person like yourself that he's never met before, it's a kind of hard to kind of crack the kind of veneer and get in there, and because you have to talk to him and feature a lot of personal things about his life that he might not have shared before. Was it kind of hard to kind of delve into his life and kind of saddle up next to him and become part of his clique, so to say?
Yeah, I think with any film, it's all about trust between. It doesn't matter who it is. It can be someone who doesn't even speak the same language. It's always the same sort of process. You've got to develop a level of trust, before people are willing to reveal, especially sensitive things, about themselves. And And I guess, like, I approached it like any other film. Like, I just was just very honest, and I was myself, and, you know, that you hope that you connect in some way. I was told in advance that he's very shy, and that he's not very articulate, and all of these sort of things. And I just found, I'm not sure what your opinion is, but I by the end of the film, I think that he's like a poet. Like, he's extremely expressive and one of the best sort of thought tracks and interviews I've ever elicited, in a film. So and the process was, we had to hit the ground running. We'd had lots of telephone calls before it started, but I was told to sort of like take it easy once we got to see each other. I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to launch straight into filming. And we went to what he said that was his most spiritually important place, and just started rolling on that, just to see how it goes. And he totally went with it. And I guess that set the tone for the filming.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by 80s Tees. 80s Tees is an online retailer of licensed t-shirts and pop culture gear from your favourite movies, TV shows, cartoons, video games, comic books, and musicians. Celebrate your inner 80s nerd and click on the link in the show notes below to get the raddest retro t-shirts delivered to your door. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Loot Crate. Founded in 2012, Loot Crate is the worldwide leader in fan subscription boxes. Loot Crate partners with industry leaders in entertainment, gaming, sports, and pop culture to deliver monthly themed crates, produce interactive experiences in digital content, and film original video productions. No matter what you geek out about, Loot Crate has a subscription box for you. To get your very own exclusive collectibles, apparel, and gear delivered to your door, be sure to click on the link in the show notes below. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is also brought to you by Vudu. Watch the latest movies and TV shows anytime, anywhere. No subscriptions, no contract. Enjoy stunning quality in up to 4K ultra high definition at home, and download and watch on your mobile device as well. To rent and buy from over 100,000 titles or watch thousands of movies free with Vudu Movies on Us, be sure to click on the link in the show notes below. Now, back to the show. You said before you're not a surfer. Having said that, you are, documenting a person whose life is practically most of the time in the water, in the ocean. That's where he finds his solace. That's where his passion is. Are you in there with him in the water? Are you on boats? Are you on jet skis? Or you leave that to someone else? Yeah,
look, it's definitely to someone else doing the filming. Rick Raffici was the cinematographer, and he's a really good friend of Kerby, has been for years, and has filmed him over years, actually, on water. And in fact, that's the real genesis of this story, is that they wanted to get a film up, and spent years trying to get it up, and had very many different forms, and finally it's taken this form. Look, I wasn't on the water. There was a support vessel, around, and in the climactic scenes of the film, that's where he ends up after having a collision with a reef, a bad collision with a reef. But Rick's cinematography is like world class. There's no one better than him, I think, and he had the wherewithal, almost the sixth sense, to know where Kerby would be, when he finally surfaces out the water, and he's there, and he keeps on rolling, and manages to capture that sort of, I guess, the emotion and the personality of the environment in which Kerby calls home.
It's not only the personality, it's the power and the violence of it as well. It's not an intentional violence. I mean, nature is nature. It does what it does, and the ocean does what it does. But it's so incredibly awe-inspiring and intimidating as well to look at it. I had moments in the film where I was just immersed with the imagery that I was watching, but I was kind of trembling at the same time, because the cinematography, it's so visceral. It almost feels like that you're in the waves with him. I'm sure, like, when you're looking back at the footage and piecing it all together afterwards, you must have felt the same thing.
Yeah. It was actually, that was kind of almost the challenge of the film, is how do you get across the subjective experience of Kerby, Because I think unless you do that in some way, however you achieve it, you don't understand him. Because that's where it's at. It's what's it like being on that wave, and you try everything. It's not just the cinematography, the sound design is an extraordinary process itself.
I wrote down that when those waves crash, it sounded like a cannon. That's what it sounded like. You can almost kind of feel like your own like place, your own environment where you are shuddering when it kind of hits. I'm sure like I saw it on the screen. I'm sure like in a cinema experience it would have been just something else. Have you seen it like on a big screen like during festival runs?
No, COVID has denied me this experience, so I'm going to be seeing it for the first time in a cinema with like audiences when it gets released.
That's awesome because it's just incredible what Rick did with the photography and how you guys piece it together. But then you have the flip side to it where you have kind of like this big wave element, but then you get to go down to really nucleus of a man, especially in regards to his connection with his family and kind of like how his dreams and his addiction. There's always kind of like a balancing act between the two. And I think that's what's really interesting about Kerby is that when he doesn't have like his time in the ocean to kind of cleanse himself and exercise himself for the demons, he goes into kind of other areas and territories. When it comes to that part of his life, what's it like to speak to him in regards to that, and also to his family, because his family plays a big part in this movie. His brother Courtney is there all the time, his partner, his father, his mum as well. I mean, it must have been something else to really not only see this man as the surfer, but this man as kind of like this human being who has so much invested in his addictions that sometimes you don't know where those begin and where he ends.
Yeah, and he would say exactly as much, and I think that's the definition of us all. You know, we define ourselves. We're not just somehow this hermetically sealed, being that's sort of floating around. Part of us is how we interact with nature. Part of us is how we interact with other people, especially family, and he himself said that was really, really important to him to get across in the film. Just how important, particularly his relationship with his brother, but also his partner and his parents. He also said that he really wanted to explore and reveal that darker side of him, that addictive nature, that the thing that happens to him when he doesn't have a wave. And a scary wave. Look, I thought that was just as brave a thing to do as to get on one of these monsters, perhaps even braver. But he really wanted to go there because he felt like that's an important reflection of who he is.
It almost seems like he's taming the storm within as he's trying to like control the storm without. And it's just such a really interesting position that he finds himself in, especially at the end of the film. Don't want to give away what happens because it is a kind of a shocking moment, but I don't know where he's at now, Kerby, in regards to as a surfer. Has the oceans tamed him? Has he kind of changed his attitude in any way towards the kind of like the more daredevil aspect of his passion in regard because of what happens to him in the movie? Or has he kind of gone back out there in the waves? Do you know which way he's kind of gone with his life?
Look, I don't think it will ruin it too much for everybody, but he's alive.
That is important. Yeah.
But he is not on the big waves, back on the big waves. But the last I spoke to him, he has every intention of working his way back onto those waves. But it's still a doubt whether or not he'll be physically able to do that. In terms of changes that he's undergone, like he's also said that he has, as a consequence of what he's been through, developed a more keen sense of the importance of his family and paying attention to those, what we can see as like the smaller moments, I guess, around us, but realising that they are indeed important, like the time that you spend with your children, etc.
It's interesting. It almost seems like he's come to terms with his mortality in a certain way, hasn't he? Yeah,
I guess he's, I think he might have thought about that his entire life. Like his tattoos are full of skulls and death imagery, and I think it's something that's plagued him. And I think that's actually one of his motivations for wanting to get out there. He just wants to live his life because he knows it's short, and he also knows that for an athlete, it's actually. You do actually only have a set period of time before you just can't do it anymore. So I think he's keenly aware of that, but I guess what's shifted, in knowing that your life is short is maybe a recalibration about what's important.
That's right, and it's just such a fantastic documentary, and I just want to say thank you so very much, Bentley Dean, for talking to me today. For everyone listening, March 10, Facing Monsters, Australian cinemas. Watch this on a big screen. You guys need to be part of the experience. You need to see the waves, you need to feel it, you need to hear the sound effects, you need all of it, because I think it's just such an incredibly immersive visually story and also narratively as well. It's just a really well done movie, and thank you so very much for your time, and hopefully we can talk again in the future with other projects as well.
Would love to. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content. Also, if you would like to request a review and support my work, please join my Patreon via the link in the description below.